Good evening, everyone.
Hi there. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us tonight. I'm incredibly grateful, as are the rest of the guys in the team. Now, through no fault of yours or mine, not a lot of the guys won't know very much about you just because we're pretty much exclusively based, definitely all based in Europe, and mostly about 90% of my team are in UK and Ireland. So I wanted to just introduce you, but then really pass the floor over to you to just share your story. I know, in fact, you were mentioned, yourself and Tony were mentioned by Cheryl Cortese the other night on a call that we did at a convention in Dublin that she zoomed into, and that was what gave me the idea actually to contact you. She was talking about how inspirational you are as a couple, and so I really thought I'd just contact you and see if it was something that you could do for us. So really grateful, thank you. And you have such a fascinating story, like an amazing background in athletics. You're a double Olympiad. You've got some Wall Street background, not to mention that you're a national marketing director within the Juice Plus company as well. So what was it that brought you into Juice Plus? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, thank you, Emma. Thanks for reaching out. And boy, you know, I was introduced to this conversation 18 years ago, and through my father, and he called me. He had some health challenges, and he said, "What do you think of this fruit and vegetable powder stuff?" And that was my first exposure, right there. Dad saying, "What do you think of this stuff?" And I, as the old saying goes, athletes tend to be ruthlessly practical, and they do what works. And I saw something that I thought was very simple, made a ton of sense, and was kind of coming at it from, I call it the Apple, the Apple sort of think different approach, kind of a design pivot away from the status quo. I saw something that was challenging the status quo. And what I saw were plant powders. I understood kind of at a guttural, visceral level that these plant powders were not a multivitamin. In the pantry shelf of my brain, I understood that there was a distinction between a multivitamin and plant powders. And I understood that this mattered. Plant powders mattered. And I knew I didn't need enough. And it was really just, that was my initial response, just like straight that way. And I understood that, food does things to the body over time. There's a compounding effect to consuming great food. And so I took it immediately to my wife, who is at Ivy League. We met at the Olympics. As I tell everyone, that's my gold medal. I got a wife out of the deal, but she was classically trained in sort of, it's kind of the establishment around food, diet, nutrition. And she kind of turned her nose up at it and kind of, as we say, she kind of poo-pooed it, and she really wasn't that interested. And I was kind of deflated. I'm like, "What, you don't trust me?" But she heard it a year later from someone else, and it made sense to her. So that's the 18-year running joke in our household of third-party validation. And she did her homework, right? And she came to discover that it was broccoli powder and kale powder and spinach powder and papaya powder. And she, once she kind of understood that, and once she saw kind of it speak the language of the health establishment, meaning published, sort of efficacy, she's like, "Hey, this makes sense for us and for our family," and we became happy customers. Shortly thereafter, she decided to launch the business. And I can tell you about that whole part of the story. But 18 years later, here we find ourselves. I've kind of carved out a niche speaking to athletes around human performance, around what makes the body work. I can go into a room of athletes or trainers or fitness gurus, or kind of that mindset of people that are off the couch. That's kind of my wheelhouse. Tony's wheelhouse is speaking to moms on a mission. But it's been an 18-year adventure, and I'm happy to unpackage kind of some of the stuff I talk about around human performance nutrition, or go into my business story. You tell me which way you want to go here.
Okay, that's both, if that's okay. A little bit on both would be amazing. But if we look at the human performance nutrition stuff first, and then maybe at the end we'll talk about your business experience and what that's done for you, and any sort of tips and things you've got for the team would be amazing. So I know you've got a real passion for human performance nutrition, and obviously with your background in athletics and the Olympics, you really understand the importance of recovery, fueling your body. So if you could just talk a little bit around that, around your passion for it, and how the product itself has helped you fulfill that passion.
Yeah, sure. So I jumped into this conversation and I, started listening to health professionals. We have a lot of health professionals in America, that give the lectures, and we're not the experts. And so I began to listen to them talk about what brings the body to life. And they talked about a concept called prevention, which did nothing for me. It was sort of like a throwaway term, because prevention, I was off the couch, I was doing stuff, especially the guy brain. We guys think we're immortal. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So prevention didn't really mean much of anything to me. But the more I began to listen, I was always listening, but I was curious. I think the one thing that I did well early on was I was curious. And I listened and I learned. But athletes, if you're not coming to them, or fitness people, kind of through the lens of performance as a kind of a conversation, then you're not going to really get their attention. At least from a standpoint of how does this body, or how do these plant powders make the human body work better? The British invasion, you all came on you kind of caught us Americans by surprise 4 or 5 years ago, and you kind of came at it with a fun, fast way to kind of shed some poundage. But I kind of came at it from the standpoint of, okay, I know food is a weapon, and it can be a weapon of mass destruction or a weapon of mass vitality. It depends on how you use it. When I was an athlete, I understood food was a weapon. But what I have really come to appreciate with these plant powders, and this is how I talk to trainers and athletes and guys. I'll use this as an example. When I was an athlete, I thought of my body as a Porsche or a Ferrari, or pick some sort of high performance sports car, kind of high maintenance, but it produced. There was a level of performance. But every athlete knows, or every fitness person knows, or every guy knows that you got to have performance, but you got to have durability. And so, you kind of also want to be a truck. You want to have performance like a high performance sports car, but you also want to be a day-to-day truck. And if you understand where human performance physiologically actually happens, it happens late at night, when you're asleep, when you're in a heavy, deep sleep, when human growth hormone actually comes out to do its job and to play and to work. And that's where you recover, rejuvenate, restore, adapt up to where you get up the next day and you're ready to go again. It's just the restoration process of sleep and the recreation of yourself through the matter that you've consumed during the day. And so food as a conversation, most athletes or trainers or people that are off the couch, tend to come at it from a calorie conversation and a carbohydrate conversation, a protein conversation, what I call a gasoline conversation, which is about calories and about fueling the engine and about, building mass up or leaning mass out. It's either trying to lose weight or gain weight and that kind of thing. And those have predominantly been the two pillars of sports nutrition, which have been replenishing depleted glycogen, which is basically a carbohydrate discussion, and rebuilding damaged proteins. And those can be muscle proteins, tissue proteins, organ proteins, whatever. So building matter and fueling. The third pillar that I like to say is kind of the blind spot in sports nutrition is conditioning physiology. And as I said, food does things to the body over time. There is a compounding conditioning effect of nutrient-dense foods, plants, fruits and vegetables. They may not have a lot of carbohydrates. They may not have a lot of protein. So you actually have to eat a lot more of them as an athlete to service a caloric requirement. However, what the conditioning of physiology, where that comes from, is it comes from vitamins and minerals and enzymes and antioxidants and phytonutrients, all of that stuff, all of those molecules that have no calories. But what it does inside the body is bring it to life. And I'll give you a couple examples. It activates physiology, it modulates physiology, and it protects physiology. In the activation side, what does it do? It actually allows your vascular system to be able to expand and contract. And we know that through some of the published studies on the endothelium, through the Juice Plus, one of the Juice Plus studies published in the American Journal of Cardiology shows improvements in vasoactivity. So, do you want vascular capacity? Do you want your vessels to have the ability to expand and contract at will? That's performance. That's one example of an activation piece of physiology that you can condition over time with this plant matter. Another, modulate. You want an immune system that's not too jacked and that's not too low. You want it kind of in this sweet spot of bandwidth, where you T cells and B cells and natural killer cells, and your immune system is right in that sweet spot. And that is a modulation that comes from eating, great food, nutrient-dense food. And this plant matter, produce concentrates, shake mixes, Juice Plus and Complete, that's the compounding effect that comes on over time. When I first got on Juice Plus, the earth did not move for me. I was not able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, but I understood intellectually that this was going to be going on inside me at a subclinical level and was having an effect that was going to play out over time. And about 12, 13, 14 months into consuming these plant powders every day, I began to notice a better adaptive response, a better recovery response. I was able to pound hard on the pitch on playing soccer. I play old man soccer, and I'm 52 years old. I play with 20-year-olds. They run circles around me, but I have fun and I can keep up with them. And I scored a goal last night, and that kind of stuff is fun. So for me, these young 20-year-olds look at me and they say, I want to be like that guy when he's 52. And that didn't just come overnight. It's been a compounding, game for a decade plus of this plant matter in my body. And so if you want to improve your recovery, if you want to improve your physiological durability, and this is kind of how you speak to guys, if you want to improve physiological durability, improve recovery, you got to cram more plant matter into your body, period, end of story. And this is the way you want to think of it. We're trying to help guys, athletes, fitness buffs catch up to the applied science of this. The train's left the station. And so if you can come from a position of strength and say, if you want to improve your recovery, you better pay attention, because I don't know if you guys follow American football that much, but the quarterback of the New England Patriots, Tom Brady, he's 40 years old, and he's probably going to win another Super Bowl, and he treats food like he uses that as a weapon. He has a home private chef. He eats probably 80-90% mostly plants, and he attributes a lot of his physiological durability to he changed his dietary regimen to include more plants, thanks to his wife, Giselle, the supermodel. But he gets it, right? And so, speaking to guys, you got to kind of come at them with. I just liken it to, you want to be a truck, you want to be physiological durable. You want to bang your body every day in the gym. You want to get up. You want to be able to do it again and take the hit and keep going. And that's where I come into a conversation with sort of the male brain or the fitness buff brain or the athletic brain to try to add value to what they're trying to pursue. So
that's brilliant. Thank you. Really useful for me as well, because it's I'm really into my fitness. A lot of the guys in the team are really into health and fitness, or are keen to talk to people around the importance of good nutrition and health and fitness. And it sounds obvious. It sounds like we know you need to eat well to be able to perform well. But what's How would you explain that in a simple way to somebody who's not got a sports background? How can they explain it to somebody maybe who has, or even for me, how do I explain to the people that I'm training with the importance of, because they're faster than me, they're maybe fitter than me, but how do I help them see the importance of this nutrition that we use?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if I heard you correctly, how do you speak to people that are fitter and faster and more athletic than you and get their attention? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, basically. So if you use my own example, I'm training for an Ironman with people who've done 3 or 4 before, and I've never done one, so they're faster than me. So it's hard for me to say, look what I use, I feel great using this product, I've used it for 5 years, but yet they're all using all sorts of gels and all sorts of things to fuel their bodies. So I want to kind of help them see, just by using the product in front of them and talking about it, but helping them to see how it's better for them maybe than what they're currently using.
Yeah. I just posted a link in the chat here that can be helpful for you all. And it's kind of where I send people to say, hey, take a look at this, go through this, and if it makes sense to you, then let's have a conversation. And I kind of use that as a screening. And it's kind of a little bit of what I just said, kind of on a blog post site, and people can kind of read through that. And if they're not, what I've found is if they don't respond to that, then I don't waste a lot of time with them. But what I would say to them, how I would open up the conversation is to say, hey, we work with, an Olympian who works with athletes all over the world, and he focuses, and he's enlightened me on the power of recovery. And I know that in my own pursuits, doing Ironman, as you're saying, I'm feeling like I can work hard every day and get up. I don't know if recovery is of interest to you, but, then send them the website. And if they don't respond to kind of what's there, I wouldn't waste a lot of time with them. I guess the way you open up the question is to ask them, what kind of foods do you eat to improve your recovery? Or are you familiar with building physiological durability for better recovery? Or no, that's not right. That's not really the best question to ask. I just say, hey, if you want to improve your recovery, or maybe this is the better way to ask it, I would love your opinion. That's probably the best way to do it, because most fitness buffs and athletes, they all, love to give we all love to give our opinions. But you're going to speak to kind of the alpha brain there. And I would just ask for their opinion. Say, hey, I have this colleague in America works with elite athletes on improving their recovery. I would love your opinion on this. Tell me what you think. And then they can kind of go in there, and then they're kind of coming back to you as an authority, giving their opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. I think that's always a good thing to ask people is, I love your opinion about something. It's a line I've used for 5 years. I've started this new business. I love your opinion. I take this product. I love your opinion. People love to give their opinion. So brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just said this with a guy the other day. Look, do you think food is a weapon? Yes or no? And he said, sort of a rhetorical question, but I want him to say yes. Mm-hmm. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think you're using it? He said, 7 or 8. It's like, man, just check this out. I work with athletes all over the world. And if you don't, just say, hey, you know me now, because we're talking right now. Jeff Olson works with athletes all over the world. He works with them around recovery. I would love your opinion. And then it's not your information coming at him. It's my information coming at him. Mm. And they go to that website and say, oh, that, and then that can maybe open up a dialogue.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that website. And guys, do go and take a look at it as well. We've got so much amazing help in this business to help you build, a customer base, to help you to grow your own knowledge. Even if you don't know anybody that's into sports science or into sports health and fitness at the moment, just grow your own knowledge a little bit so that when you do come across somebody like that, you've got a little bit of knowledge that you can share with them. So thank you so much. I'd love to talk a little bit about your business experience, Jack, if that's okay. So, you said yourself that you joined the business with your wife Tony. She's more into the helping the Yummy Mummy Brigade, which is kind of what a lot of my team are as well. So maybe we'll get Tony on a call another time if she's open to that. But from your own point of view, what's the business done for you? How did you get it moving over in America 15 years ago? And then I'd love you to touch a little bit on the importance of mindset as well around what we do.
Yeah. Wow. So in my 20s and 30s, I was kind of transport, as I say, for testosterone. I was pretty much an alpha male. I was very, I was a guy's guy. I was a downhill ski racer. That's pretty testosterone. I went to work on Wall Street, pretty testosterone. Then the .com, technology bubble came along, and I did that. And, so overtraining ended my athletic career. Ambition drove me to Wall Street. Desire to, earn a lot of money drove me into the .coms. I got my degree in business finance, and so I wanted to have money be my servant, not my master. But I was in the game hustling as an employee, as a corporate guy. After I retired from professional athletics, I went and got a job. And I did what a guy is supposed to do when he has married and has kids. He's supposed to be a provider, and he's supposed to bring home a paycheck and provide for his family. And so that was my mindset coming into this. I understood Juice Plus as a product, and I was a raving fan and a happy customer, and I believed in it. And I call it, it's like brushing my teeth. I do it every day. But the business, tremendous resistance around, tremendous illusions of knowledge. Pretty typical, not untypical. I was not unique in that sense, but here's what I couldn't understand. I couldn't see how these little itty bitty tiny plant powders could provide a way for me to provide for my family. I couldn't understand that. I couldn't see it. I did have some resistance around the business model of network marketing because it has earned a bad reputation for a few simple reasons. We don't do that. We don't do a lot of that. We don't do any of that stuff really. And that's why I love what Dan Holtzman, your Dan Holtzman has distinguished. And I think in the pantry shelf of people's brains, I think we have a tremendous opportunity when someone asks you, is it one of those network marketing things? Here's how I answer the question. I got the verbiage from Dan Holtzman. I said, no, we're actually a network franchise. Have you ever heard of it? I mean, how many people have ever heard of that word, network franchise? I mean, that's right in the Dan Holtzman video, from 4 or 5 years ago. When I heard that, it in my brain, it was like a new category. We've just like named and claimed a new category. And there's a lot of data and a lot of science around when you can distinguish a new category for people and then be the leader in that category, you got a leg up on the competition. So what we did with Juice Plus is we pioneered plant powders. We pioneered produce concentrates. Now we're pioneering vertical aeroponics with the Tower Gardens. Those are categories, right? And if you can help people understand the category first, then the brand, is secondary, right? So this is a smartphone, and it does all these amazing things, and that's the category of a smartphone, but the brand is Apple, right? It's the iPhone, but it delivered a new category. And so with the business, I kind of came into it with some resistance around network marketing. I've come to find out that we operate very, very different. But my wife said, hey, I'm going to do this as a side business. And I was like, you go, girl. I was supportive. I was her date to events. That's the other thing I did well. I was curious, but I was supportive, and I attended events with her as her date. And I sat in the back, arms crossed, and I listened and I learned, and I poked the bear, and I asked the questions, and I hung out with the leadership, and I had beers with them, and I got to know them, and I kept asking questions. And I don't need to bore you with 3 or 4 years of mental brain damage, but here's what I found. a real company in the real world, making a real difference, one person at a time. And then I had to look in the mirror and say, what the heck is your problem, Jeff? And I call us I believe the Juice Plus company, I think we're the Apple Inc., like this Apple Inc., the Apple Inc. of health food. We have innovated new categories, health food technologies. We've got produce concentrates. We've got plant powders. We've got plant oils in the omegas. We've got these vertical aeroponics. And on the business side, we've got this category called a network franchise. And they're new, like this was new. And that innovation, when I saw my wife launch in the business, I said, kind of a competitive advantage. Wouldn't you say? We don't really have any competition. But I was supportive of her, and I was like, you go, girl, this looks good. I'm glad you got your thing. I'm happy for you. But I just couldn't see how I could do this business as a man. What got my attention was when she started paying our mortgage, paying our house payment. Then she started paying our car payment. And if you want to get a spouse's attention or a significant other's attention or your parents' attention or whoever is close to you who's watching you, get as we say, a comma in your paycheck. Get your paycheck up to there's 4 numbers in it, or even 5 numbers. At 4 numbers is a good place to start. Even 3 numbers is a good place. That's on a consistent basis, right? A monthly. And some people just want to see you're still singing the same tune a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Oh, this is a thing. Like, this is built to last. This is who you are. You're not going anywhere. Like, you become the brand. You're like this. I'm rolling. I'm up to something. People want to be involved in people that are up to something. And some people want to see that what you're singing, the tune you're singing, is going to stand the test of time, right? And so once I saw that she was consistently paying these bills, I was like, okay, tell me more. And here's my learning. Here's my vulnerability. This business as a man, it's humbled me in a lot of great ways, because I'm looking at this call here and I think I'm the only guy on this call, right? So it's predominantly women who crush it in this business. And there's a real reason for that, is because you all are nurturers. And when you find something you love, you share it with your girlfriends. I mean, that's just who you women are. And we guys, we tend to not do that. I mean, we tend to be a little bit more transactional in our relationships and less, conversational and discovery oriented like women. And so what I've learned is a different kind of leadership, through you women, versus kind of the man's brain. And it's been humbling for me, but in a really great way. I've had to kind of try to figure out how to find my voice as a guy in a predominantly women business. And I'm trying to, be a dad on a mission. I'm trying to bring some testosterone into the conversation. But in the end, I understand the numbers. I mean, in Europe, it's a little like, I think in Germany, there's a lot of guys doing it. I think in Italy, a lot of guys doing it. Here in America, not so much. We're about 15% of the population. But what I love about this company is we've got men, we've got women, we've got young, we've got old, we've got people that didn't graduate from anything, and we've got PhDs and everything, and we've got everyone in between. And the more educated you are sometimes, the smaller your paycheck is. And I mean that knowledge is not going to make you successful. What's going to make you successful is about a handful of things. You master 5 or 6 things, and they all can be trained. You master 5 or 6 things, you're going to be, you're going to earn a full-time income in this business. I think we are just getting started as a company. I think we just almost hit 800 million in revenue this past year. And I think we're estimated to hit $1 billion by 2020. I know Dan's gearing up for the big Dubai global conference in 2020. Yeah. I'm going to be there with you all in 2020. But $1 billion a year in little itty bitty plant powders, that ain't an experiment, man. Like, this company is up to something, and we're just all trying out there to hustle and game and get our little piece of that pie. But in terms of the future, I mean, we're going to challenge pharmaceutical companies. We are, kicking ass and taking names. And our job is right now is just keep our head down and just keep doing the work. I mean, you're one team member away who's on fire from solving all your problems. If you're struggling, if you're frustrated, if you're kind of wah, crying and whining and, you know, wallowing in your beer or wine or whatever, like all of that can change. As Mitra says, Mitra's my our upline, Doug and Mitra, and she says, you know, there's no problem in our business that can't be solved by a few new customers and a new distributor on fire. There is no problem in our business that can't be solved by that, you know. And if you're stuck, if you're struggling, this gets into mindset. I'll kind of wrap up with mindset is, if you don't have what I call a joy found in effort in this game, in this hustle, in this exercise, in this entrepreneurial endeavor, if there's not a sense of joy and sharing and gifting with the world coming out of your heart, people are going to pick up on that. And this is another part of leadership that I've learned through all you women. You women will throw yourself in front of a bus for your friend, and be your servers, your servants. And us guys, we tend to be a little more selfish. And so one of the things that has been really rewarding for me is to kind of understand how to serve first, and the mindset. I mean, if you look at anyone you admire in this business, here's maybe a visual to think of. Find someone you admire in this business. Chances are, when you see them, when you experience them, when you're interacting with them, I'd be willing to bet that they have a level of certainty, a level of clarity, and a level of energy that you admire. I know the people that I admire, I look at them and I say, wow, they got game. They are up to something. And I respond to their certainty. I respond to their clarity. I respond to their energy. And just give yourself a little test. And if you lack clarity, if you lack certainty, if you lack energy, that's going to occur to the people you're interacting with in a certain way. And that can be trained, that can be built, that can be grown. You can grow that into something. You can condition that into something. But it might come over time. All good things do. But if you find yourself stuck, I would go back to the basics, back to the first principles, and really challenge yourself. Am I mastering these few simple things, right? And it's asking great questions. It's inviting to events. It's showing up, right? Showing up and staying plugged in and going through the numbers. That's a bit of the inconvenient truth of our business, is going through the numbers and having to talk to a lot of people to find, you got to shuck a lot of oysters to find a few pearls. When you're talking about building a team, you may have to shuck 100 oysters to find 2 or 3 pearls. Mm-hmm. And that maybe sometimes is because people say, oh, my business is not growing very fast. I was like, well, how many people are you talking to? And turns out they're not shucking a lot of oysters. That tends to be something we don't talk a lot in our business. But anyway, so for my family and I, when I got in this business, I had a lot of resistance. I had a lot of unlearning to do, a lot of humility. But I have stumbled, bumbled, fumbled, mumbled, grumbled, and been humbled my way, to a lifestyle that most only dream of. We work very, very part-time and earn a great income. And we're now trying to catch up to the level of income that you're at, Emma. I mean, you guys, the British invasion, right? So we in America kind of have a little bit more steady Eddie business rather than kind of the shoot up business. And so both are good. Both have pros and cons. We're trying to, go a little faster here in America, but in the end, it's fun, fast, and built to last that we're all trying to build. We're trying to build it fun. We're trying to build it fast, but built to last is sort of the bookend to that conversation. So.
Unbelievable, thank you. And you're absolutely right. That sometimes speed is awesome, but it also can be a curse. in that when everybody else doesn't, we're all about duplication, and if people don't duplicate your speed, then they think that they're not good at it or that they can't do it, when actually the speed percentage of people that go like that is really, really, really tiny. And the majority of people, it's much more of an up and down journey. And actually, you know, this team that we're 5 years old next month, that started with me. John Holloway brought me into the business. He's been in the business like 8 years. Our journey's been really, really up and down since that big spike that we had in, you know, 2013, 14. So sometimes people don't see, do they, what goes on behind the scenes, I guess. But all of that content is so useful. And I love to talk about two things that you said there that I really love that I'll use forever now. I might even pass them off as my own one day. You only ever one team member away from solving all your problems, and that's something that I think you can take with you everywhere. It's a great little reminder. One more person could just be the person that could, you know, create completely differently change your business. And also, you know, and I always say this too, is people follow certainty, and that is so true. You're certain, your team are certain, Mitra's certain, John was always certain, Jeff's certain, Lauren's certain, I'm certain, John Holloway is certain, Alex Webb is certain, Simon Bowler is certain, Dan's certain. They're the people that we follow and look at their complete certainty. So I completely agree with you, certainty, and then I'm going to add clarity and energy to that message as well, because I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much. I could literally sit and chat to you all day. Amazing information about the product there from a completely different slant than anybody that we've ever had on the call before. So really from my heart to yours, incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. Please give my love to everybody over there and to Tony as well. And guys, I'm going to unmute you as well so you can just say goodbye and thank you. And if I can ever return the favor at all, you obviously just only need to.
Absolutely, I'm going to call on you. So yeah, I will be in touch.
Absolutely, anytime, guys. You can see you unmuted, so you can say goodbye and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you later. Bye bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye bye.